recent gathering of scholars as well. So if we've got anyone who's got questions about particular merit-based scholarships, then hopefully, Remy, you can share some of your experiences of applying as well. That might be helpful. I'm just going to share my screen quickly. Hopefully that is working. There we go. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a brief introduction to the university. If you've got questions, do pop them in the chat. Hopefully, some of them will be answered as we go. But yes, Remy, I'll be throwing over to you for questions about kind of the real life experience of the students as well. So hopefully we'll cover all bases today. So the University of Sussex is a campus-based university. We are based near the city of Brighton, so we're about 10 minutes away from Brighton. Now, with these lovely photos here are of various parts of the city. Brighton is very much known for being a wonderful holiday destination, a very warm, welcoming place to be. It's a really wonderful place for our students to study and to spend time. Remy, I'm actually going to throw it over to you immediately. Are you living on campus or are you living in Brighton? And how much time do you spend in the city?
Oh, thank you, Alice. Yes, I live on campus. I live at Stanmark Court. I'd say I spend an average amount of time in the city. So it's easier because I'm on campus. Usually on the weekends, I go out to get whatever it is that I need to get, whether for recreation or to just buy groceries and stuff. It's pretty much easy because it's close to the city center, right? But yes, so I live on campus and it's easy for me to access the city center to get whatever it is I need to get.
I think it's unfortunate, Remy. I don't know if you've necessarily seen Brighton at its best, as the weather hasn't been very good recently. But I'm confident that in the summer you'll have more walks along the beach and barbecues and all sorts of things. There'll be a lot going on.
Oh, I can't wait. But I was lucky. When I resumed, I was able to go to the beach. It was a very sunny day and I loved it.
Amazing. Excellent. That's what we like to hear.
Yeah.
So just a little bit of introduction to the university. We are one of the younger universities in the UK. We're not one of the kind of the old 100-year, like kind of several hundred years old universities. We were founded in the 60s. We were founded with the spirit of being interdisciplinary, so doing things differently, trying to combine different subjects in a way that helps the learning of each subject and allows people to become specialists, but in a more interesting way, and allowing people to get more career related knowledge as well. At the moment, we've got just over 18,500 students, about 30% international. But then at postgraduate taught, so at master's level, we have quite a lot more international students. And so when you come to Sussex, you are not going to be the international student. You're not going to be the odd one out. You will be one of many, many international students. You'll be part of a large international community. Remy, on your program, how many are there many students from your country, or are you making friends with people from all over?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so this excites me to talk about. I think I have about 19 coursemates and we are from about 17 different countries. So you can imagine
No.
the diversity. It is amazing.
That's so good. Well, the nice thing about that, of course, is that you've got not only will you have contacts that you can reach out to later on, but also you've got friends that you can go and visit. What a great excuse to, go to Brazil on holiday or whatever.
Mhm.
That's really nice. So the University of Sussex, you can see in that photo on the right-hand side, it's a campus-based university. And the nice thing about that is you've got everything that you want there. You've got accommodation, you've got food, you've got the opportunity to buy books and things, whatever you want, you can find it on campus. We are also in a national park, so we're surrounded by beautiful green space. And if ever it all gets a bit much, I do this on my lunch break sometimes. If you just want a break, you want a breather, you can just go for a lovely walk. Go for a walk in the countryside, walk up the hill. It is kind of hard work, but it's worth it when you get to the top and look at those incredible views. And because we are on a campus as well, you've got a lot of the kind of sports facilities and things that you need. Remy, it sounds like do you spend quite a lot of time on campus then? And do you ever go for a wander in the countryside, or is that not your thing?
Oh, yes. Yes. I spend a lot of time on campus actually. Oh, yes. And I am a frequent visitor to Stanmore Park.
Nice.
I go there a lot. I remember one time last year, it was a lot in that period, and I just needed to declutter, and it was so helpful. I went to I think that was my first time of going to the park, and the way, the beauty, the calm, the serenity of it, it was beautiful. And ever since I have been going back. So yes, I stay on campus, but I make sure that I utilize every resource available for me.
Perfect. We love to hear it. So as I mentioned, Sussex is interdisciplinary, and one of the things that I'll be talking about later as well is our career support. So these are kind of some of the big key points about the university. I would say location is one of the biggest selling points, ranking and reputation another, and then also the fact that our careers team is award winning. So if you're considering coming and studying in the UK, then certainly it's worth giving Sussex a look and finding out if we offer a course that you might be interested in. So as you can see there, that is the city of Brighton. In the background, right in the middle, you can see a little, I don't know how good your eyesight is, but you can see a little kind of white bulge. That is the Amex football stadium. So that's where the Brighton and Hove team plays. And right next to that, that is the campus itself. So those are all of the things that you've got going on campus as well. And then you can see just how close you are to the city of Brighton. So we're about an hour away from London. So if you ever want to go to London, do a day trip, go and visit family, friends, you can do that very easily. If you want to go to London and then go out and use that as a jumping off point to get to Edinburgh for a weekend or Oxford or go down to the southwest, for example, you can do all of that. So basically, when you get to London area, you can kind of usually get trains out to all sorts of different places. So if you've got a free weekend, if you don't have too many assignments, you can always go and do some traveling around as well. I'm going to skip past this actually because I think we've talked a lot about not letting me skip it. So there we go. So Brighton is a really, really wonderful place. So I should say I'm actually not a graduate of the University of Sussex. I started working at the university because when I was in my mid-20s, I went to Brighton for a holiday, for a weekend with a friend, as many people do because it's Brighton. And I absolutely fell in love with the city. I walked around the lanes, which are these little narrow streets that have all sorts of lovely little coffee shops and art galleries and things. And I remember walking around thinking, oh, this is amazing. Like I really, really need to move here. And so I made it my goal to try and find a job at Sussex. And that is how I've ended up in this job. And I feel very, very lucky to do it because now I get to work with fantastic current students and applicants and alumni, but also in a place that I just think is just beautiful and prestigious, and is a really inspiring place to work and live. And I think the university itself, because we're so close to beautiful surroundings, I would say that a lot of the students, I've talked about going to Edinburgh or going to Glasgow, but actually a lot of the students, if they're going to travel around, they'll go to Hastings, they'll go to Eastbourne, they'll go and see the different local places you can get to on the train. Remy, have you done much traveling around? Have you seen anything outside of the university so far, or have you mostly been focusing on the work side of things?
Okay. Interesting question. Honestly, I have been focusing on the work side of things. However, I think that I have tried to sort of balance it. So I've been to London 3 times now. And
Nice.
I mean, I think I'm doing well if I do say
Yeah, that's really good.
well. And for this year, I plan some other trips. I plan to increase the trips. So yes, it's been beautiful. I particularly like how that it's just about 1 hour to go to London. The train station is just behind me here. It's just, it's just so perfect. It makes it easy to commute, whether you want to go to London or you just want to go to the city center around here. It makes it very easy to commute.
Perfect. And hopefully you'll have a bit more time when the weather's nicer, you'll have some more time to go and see some more things. Maybe when you've got some of your deadlines over and done with.
Mhm.
So as we were saying, we're pretty close to the city of Brighton. It is possible to cycle. I wouldn't want to because it's hills on the way back, but on the way out, it'll be nice and easy. But I'm not fit enough to cycle uphill, so good luck to you if you are. But yeah, train is usually the fastest. You can also take a bus as well. So there are quite a few different ways in which you can get to the city. And this is the campus, so you can see even on campus just how beautiful and green it is. And all around, you've got this gorgeous countryside. Some of the rooms, particularly if you end up with a room on the top floor, you're probably going to get a lovely view of some lovely green spaces. But I think there's something really nice about this. There's something very inspiring about being in the campus and being surrounded by this much greenery. I think it's quite good for the soul, and I think it's quite peaceful and calm. And the fact that you've got parks and lovely spaces nearby as well definitely makes a difference for sure. So, in terms of the kinds of subjects that we offer, So I've given you a little bit of a kind of run through of some of the basic areas. So we do have a fantastic business school. If you look on any of the photos of the university, in fact, that is the business school that you're seeing right now. Usually the pro tip is that if you're looking at a campus, the nicest building is always the business school because they're always the ones with the most money. And I think that's pretty much the case at Sussex as well as everywhere else. We also offer courses like education, social work, global studies, international development. And if you are interested in a development related subject, we are number one in the world for development studies, and we have been for 8 years now. So it's a really fantastic place to study. You're working alongside some really incredible academics, but also some incredible students like Remy who have experience of all sorts of areas and are willing to share their experiences in class as well. So particularly for development related courses and at the master's level, there is a lot of exchange of knowledge that isn't just you learning from an academic. You will be learning with your fellow students, you'll be learning from your fellow students, and you'll come away with a completely different mindset. You can see the rest of the list there. But yeah, another one that I would like to point out is psychology. So that's actually our biggest department. We've got quite a lot of students who are in the psychology faculty, and then we've got engineering, computer science, artificial intelligence. So these are some of the ones that we get the most interest in from students. But really, whatever you do, you will be learning from people who are experts in the field. You'll be learning from people with lots and lots of academic experience, and you will be studying alongside students potentially from all over the world who have a whole range of different experiences. Remy, from your experience, do you kind of share your opinions a lot in class? And was that something that you were used to when you arrived, or did it kind of take some getting used to?
Yes, I do. I share my opinion a lot. And I think that reminds me to mention the lecturing system. It's beyond just, oh, throwing facts at you, lecturing you, telling you what is. I particularly like how the seminar structure is done in such a way that you don't have a choice. You would want to speak up, right? Like you said, it's the courses here are quite interdisciplinary. So you can imagine for my course, I'm from law, another person has an engineering background, another person has another background. So in that wise, everybody wants to say something. Oh, this is my perspective from a lawyer perspective. Oh, this is what I think from an engineer perspective. So that happens a lot. As to whether it's new to me, it's not new to me, but I quite appreciate how, I mean, I'm here and I'm not thinking, oh, how do I get to let them know what I know? How do I get to explain my own point of view? I like how the schooling structure here allows you to voice your opinion. You're sort of encouraged. Oh, what do you think? Think outside the box. It encourages you to be critically minded, right? So I don't think anybody will come here and leave Sussex not knowing how to have a mind of their own. So I sort of appreciate that about the schooling system.
That's a really good point. Yeah. As I mentioned, one of the joys of this job is speaking to our incredible alumni who've gone off and done wonderful things. And I was speaking to some of our alumni in Nairobi a few weeks ago, and all of them were saying that when they came back from Sussex, they viewed their jobs and the world in a different way. And they were saying that actually in the workplace, sometimes they're kind of annoying because everyone else says, yeah, we should all do this thing, everyone agrees. But they're the one person that says, oh, actually, I've got this other viewpoint, maybe we should consider, and they can kind of find problems, try and solve those problems. And it makes them really sought after in work because they are the people that can spot the problems that perhaps other people might not have been able to see. And I think it's that ability, as Remy was saying, it's that ability to discuss, disagree, learn from each other that really gives you that academic strength and also the career-based strength that you're then going to use when you graduate and when you're in the working world. So it's such an important thing. So let's move on from this one, if I can. Apologies. There we go. So just to give you a little bit of an introduction to the kind of student support that we offer, many universities will offer this in the UK. So I don't want to say, oh, these are the things that Sussex only offers, because actually a lot of universities will be fairly similar in terms of what their offerings are. But at the University of Sussex, we do have a counselling team. So if anyone's having a challenging time, we've got a team of people that you can speak to that will give you that kind of guidance. We've got the residential support team, who are there to help you if ever you're having difficulties with your housing, for example, or if you've got a really, really messy neighbour and you've asked them to kind of to clear up their dishes. You've got people that you can speak to that can advocate on your behalf and to make sure that your living situation is as nice as possible. We do have a lot of support for international students as well. We know that, you might be wanting to go out and get a Schengen visa and go to Paris for a weekend. And we've got teams of people that are able to give you visa guidance as well. So there's an awful lot of support available on campus, including health, medical, and faith and spirituality as well. So I don't know if you saw there's a beautiful, perhaps slightly weird looking kind of round building on the center of campus, which is the meeting house. And it is one of the most beautiful things on the inside. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. It's beautiful stained glass windows, and on a sunny day, all the light comes in, and you just see the beautiful colors of. It's like a painting. It's absolutely stunning. And yeah, so that meeting house is a space that anyone is able to use, and students, they have a lovely downstairs space that's all quite chilled out and relaxed. But we've got prayer rooms. We've got whatever you're interested in, whatever you need, whatever your challenges are. We will have things that are going to be able to support you. And because it's a campus-based university, we also have an on-site security team as well. And a few weeks ago, I met a student who was telling me that sometimes if she's come back from a night out and she's a bit nervous about walking across campus to her room, she'll call the security team and they'll pick her up and take her back to her accommodation. So they're a really friendly bunch, and you're surrounded by people that are keen to make sure that you have the best possible experience at the university. We also have fantastic career support. We are actually award winning. We offer support from finding jobs. So we've got access to jobs that are advertised by industry partners or other jobs that we can find. We're able to give you support on how to figure out what you want to do. So every school, we call them schools, kind of faculty department, will have a dedicated career counsellor who knows about jobs in that particular industry. So they'll be able to give you guidance and give you that kind of support. We can help you find the jobs. We can help you make sure that your resume is as good as possible, prepare you for interviews. And we do all sorts of events. And Remy, perhaps you're experiencing this, but I think one of the biggest things in terms of jobs and the next steps are getting to know people, finding those contacts, and it can be difficult to know where to start. So our career team offers all sorts of different activities where you can meet people, you can go and get some business cards, you can connect with them on LinkedIn, you can kind of ask those questions that will make you memorable and that will result in you potentially even getting a job offer or being given the opportunity for an internship. So we have a lot of support available for our students. When I started doing this job, which was I don't know, 15 years ago, something like that. One of the messages was always that you should just pick your course based on how much you love it. And there was nothing else. We never talked about careers. We just said, pick a course you love. And realistically, we know nowadays that actually that's not the answer. We know that you need to pick a course that you're really, really interested in. But I also know that you're here to look for a career. You're here to look for what that course is going to do for you and how it's going to help your career prospects. And that is why our careers team work as hard as they do. And they're award winning in the support that they give as well. So they've actually won. They were one of the winners for the Awards for Excellence with supporting graduates with their employability. We're 16th in the UK for employment outcomes. So we have a lot of work that we've put into helping our students find jobs. And we also know actually that if you're planning on staying in the UK and you're looking for jobs, that you might be interested in figuring out how to actually get one of those jobs. Applying in the UK might be different to applying in Rwanda or applying in Malawi. So we've got access to support that we can give to you to help you make yourself as employable as possible and help you demystify perhaps some of the cultural differences. Remy, I don't want to put you on the spot. Maybe you haven't, but have you done anything with the career service, or again, have you just been too busy?
Well, I have, luckily. So the first few weeks of resuming last year, there was a career fair and I attended, and I tell you, till today, I still got an email of vacancies from an agency just because I was able to attend the career fair. So I went for the fair, got some cards, spoke with some people, and ever since I've been getting vacancies, The only reason that maybe I've not even taken up some is probably because of my schedule, and maybe because some do not, for now, fit what I would like to do in the moment. But I think that, yes, imagine just one career fair and I'm still getting access to opportunities. Imagine having to, attend more than one. So yes, I'd say that it's one resource you want to utilize. Yeah.
Fabulous, thank you. Yeah, I speak to a lot of applicants that say that they really care about careers, but then often when people start, there can sometimes be a tendency to get overwhelmed. You're busy, you're in a new place, you're trying to deal with your studies, and sometimes it's easy to forget. And I think the career support that we offer, you get out of it what you put in. So if you, as Remy was saying, if you go to one fair and get some business cards, imagine what you do if you go to several fairs, or you go along to a webinar, or you do an internship over the Christmas break, or there are lots and lots of opportunities. You just need to seize them. We also have opportunities for part-time work as well. I'm not actually sure this is on any of the slides, but I did want to talk about part-time options. So we do have the opportunity to be an international student ambassador. So Remy is with us today because you are an international student ambassador, right?
Yes.
And that's a pretty selective process. We have quite a lot of applications, and we'll pick the students that are the most enthusiastic, the most interesting, that we think will do a really good job of representing Sussex. So that's a great opportunity to get some part-time work, but is in a fairly flexible way. So it doesn't mean that every Saturday you're having to go and do a cafe job. The international ambassador role is a great opportunity for you to get a bit of extra money while being able to fit it in around your other commitments and your other interests. Remy, did you do the call campaign, or have you done any other work with us as an ambassador yet?
Oh, yes, yes. Campus store call campaigns. I think we just ended last week.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. So I partook in that. There's another one that should be happening soon. So, yes, it's been smooth. It's been interesting.
Yeah, the call campaign's a good one because it's outside of term time normally, so you get a bit more time and you're making phone calls and calling up offer holders. But again, it's around your schedule, it's when you're able to do it, and it's a really great bunch of people. The international ambassadors are always just a really friendly team and of like really interesting, enthusiastic folks. So it's definitely that's a nice thing to do. There are opportunities for part-time work on campus. We've got various shops, coffee shops, bars, those kinds of things. And it's also possible for students to get part-time work off campus as well. So, you could go into Brighton and get a job in a cafe. The only thing that it's worth noting is that as an international student, you are limited to 20 hours of work per week during term time. So realistically, you're not going to be able to pay your fees with the money that you're going to get. If you're going to be doing a part-time job, it might help you make a little bit of extra money so you can buy slightly nicer food, or so you can do a weekend trip somewhere, but you can't rely on that to be able to pay your fees. You're going to need to be able to pay your fees and pay your accommodation aside from that. Just one more, a little bit about our career support. So we do have a graduate recruitment fair, which I assume, Remy, was the one that you went to, with a large number of employers. But we also have different alumni events. We have different employer events. We've also got, if you're interested in consultancy, we've got the opportunity for people to be a Sussex student consultant. So they go into real businesses and hear about their real challenges and come up with possible solutions for those businesses. So it's a really great chance for you to learn about some kind of how to use your knowledge and how to use your problem solving in a way that might be useful for real businesses. And then we've also got job vacancies, internships, those kinds of things that are advertised on our careers hub. So if you make the effort to find the jobs, to find the opportunities, there are so many opportunities there. And I think part of the challenge is trying to narrow it down when you've got so many opportunities to take advantage of. So I'll talk about entry requirements. We are looking, I mean, I'm not going to read them all out, but you can see we accept students from all over the world. If you're coming from Rwanda as an ALU student, then you'd be looking for either lower second class or upper second class, depending on the course. So for some of our more advanced courses, you would be needing the upper second. For the majority of the courses, you'd be needing the lower second. That's what we would be looking for. We might also have subject-specific requirements. So if you're doing, for example, a computer science program, you'll need to have a background in something relating to computing or computer science, although there are some exceptions to that. So we do have a computer science conversion course. So if anyone is here thinking they really want to do computer science and haven't had the chance to do it, then I would recommend looking into our computer science conversion, because that's a great way to get a master's in computer science, converting your previous knowledge. You need to have a good level of mathematics for that, and also a real interest in the subject, but it does give you a way into a subject that perhaps you might have missed out on otherwise. We also have English language requirements. So we do accept some things like WIEC, NECO, KCSE, South African National Senior Certificate. So if you've taken any of those, we would be able to accept those as long as you meet our entry requirements. If you've done IELTS, TOEFL, we accept Pearson, the Duolingo English test. We also accept language cert as well. So we accept quite a lot of different English language tests. The general rule of thumb is that the test needs to be valid for 2 years, and you need to have done a test within the last 2 years of starting your course. So if you're planning on starting with us in September, but you've done an IELTS that expires this June, then you're going to need to do another IELTS. We won't be able to accept that one for September entry. But you can see a full list of the test scores required on our website. And the reason why we've got ranges as well, in case you're wondering, most of our courses, for example, for IELTS would need 6 overall with 5.5 in each component, and that would be the average. You would need that or the equivalent of that. But for some of our courses, particularly the advanced ones in development related subjects, you might need the higher levels. So for some of the development courses, you might need the 7 overall with 6.5 in each component. So that's the difference between those. I wanted to talk about development as well, because development is it's a really big topic, and we have so many different options, and I think it can be a bit confusing. So the way it works at Sussex is that we are a university, or the University of Sussex, but we also have a relationship with the Institute of Development Studies, and together we share the #1 in the world ranking. Now, IDS, the Institute of Development Studies, has specific subjects that only they offer. And those particular subjects, usually you're not able to have the Sussex scholarship. So if you're doing a subject like that, the scholarships that you will be able to do, and I'll talk about those in a minute, will be different. So IDS have their own packages of scholarships that you're able to have. Normally, the IDS scholarship is a fully funded scholarship, but there are only 1 or 2 of them available each year. Whereas if you're coming to Sussex for example, development economics or sustainable development, which sits within Sussex rather than IDS, then you would have more opportunities for scholarships, but you would have fewer opportunities for full scholarships, because the IDS scholarship is normally a full one. I appreciate that might be a bit complicated. If you have particular questions, then just let me know. The other thing I wanted to raise as well is that we do have master's programs that have placement years as well. So if you're looking at career options, it might be worth considering a placement, just to give you the chance to get some work experience, potentially even get job offers longer term as well, and give you that kind of experience of the master's program and also the working world. So it kind of depends whether you want to do this, because obviously there will be additional course charges for the placement years. But yeah, it's worth keeping your eye open for placement opportunities at master's level. Right, the thing that I think people have been wondering about from the start. So the fees for most of our courses at the moment range between £22,575 to £26,250. The MBA is higher. I think the MBA is between 27 and 28,000 at the moment. We do have scholarships. So if you're a South African student, you might be eligible for the Mandela Scholarship, which gives you your fees plus a stipend. That's a merit-based scholarship, so you have to write a compelling application for that one. And I think this year we've got 2 Mandela Scholars. There is also the possibility for the Chancellor's International Scholarship. So for that one, you would need a really strong academic background. You need to be having basically a first. You need a top grade at university, and you need to have a very compelling reason why you want to apply for your course, why you want that scholarship. So that is a £5,000 tuition fee discount. Now, if any of you here are from Egypt, Nigeria, Bangladesh, Vietnam, India, you would be eligible for the country scholarships. So those are automatic. That's a £4,000 discount. So any Nigerians in the audience would be eligible for a £4,000 discount off their fees just for being Nigerian. Or there is the possibility to apply for the Great Scholarships. At the moment, the Great Scholarship provision changes each year. So this year we've got scholarships for Kenya, Thailand, and China, and those are £10,000 scholarships. Those scholarships can be, you can't combine them with each other. So you can't have the Nigeria scholarship and the Chancellor's International Scholarship, but you can combine them with the awards. So we've got business school awards, we've got engineering and informatic awards, and those are automatic £2,000 discounts. So if you're a Nigerian who is doing a business school program, for example, your total discount automatic would be £6,000. If you've got any questions about those particular scholarships, then do get in touch. Remy, I wanted to talk. I don't actually have any slides on this, but I did want to talk a little bit about your experience because you are a scholar. You've made it. You've done really, really well in getting a very, very difficult and challenging scholarship to get. Do you have any advice for anyone who's applying for an external scholarship like Commonwealth or Chevening? What do you recommend?
Oh, okay. Thank you, Alice. I would recommend starting early. I would recommend not waiting till the deadline. So what worked for me was begin to build your story, right? Like I always like to say, there are a lot of fantastic, excellent people that would apply, right? So what stands you out is how you are able to sell your story. If you're excellent, if you have all of these potentials and all that, if you're not able to capture it in a few pages, there is no way that these scholarship bodies will be able to know what you carry and say, oh, yes, you deserve to get it. So start now. Today, you might want to start with an outline. Tomorrow, you want to develop or need to, the day after, you want to give it a little bit of flesh. Don't wait till it's maybe till when applications are open. That is what I would always advise. Once you're able to successfully get how to put your story together, the rest is a breeze. The other documents are nothing to worry about. Just be able to sell your story. And the way that you can do that convincingly is if you give yourself enough time to go over it. For instance, the Children and the Commonwealth scholarships will open towards the end of the year, right? So usually what I'd advise is start now. If you have an idea, oh, this is what I have done, or this is something that I did in my undergrad that I think would be impressive to whoever reads it, jot that down, such that you might think you have, oh, I still have like 6 months. Before you know it, it's here. And then you begin to scramble, you're hustling your job, trying to merge all of them together. And then that way you can bring out something nice that someone, can read and say, okay, I understand what this person carries, and this person is worthy enough to get the scholarship. So like I said, start early. And okay, so I think I'll just end with this. Don't think that there's any scholarship that you are underqualified for. You'll be surprised that there are many people who are not even as qualified that gets it. Why? Because they believe in themselves. So when you see these requirements, oh, you must have this, you must have this, do not necessarily think that you must have saved the world, you must have helped 1 billion children. No, there are little things that you think don't matter, but those are the things they want to see. In your sphere, in your community, in your local assembly, how have you been able to make impact? So these little things are actually what you combine together to make a very compelling, scholarship application. For want of time, I think I'll just stop there.
Remy, that was great. Thank you. That's really, really helpful. And I think I wanted to add a couple of things as well. So a few years ago, I did the marking for the Chevening applications. And one of the things that I saw that came up quite a lot was that people, when they were asked about examples of leadership or examples of networking, sometimes people would lean on things from, in some cases, primary school. Those ones were really bad, but they would lean on things from, they were a prefect in school or whatever. But actually, the ones that were the strongest were the ones where, as Remy said, they'd identified a problem in their local community. It could be anything. It could be something. It could be to do with corruption or period poverty or whatever, that there is a problem in the local community that someone has kind of said, actually, I think I can figure this out. I can band together with some friends. I can band together with some colleagues. Maybe we can try and do something that will make a tangible difference. And those were the strongest ones because those were people who had spotted something. It didn't have to be huge. As Remy said, you don't have to be, curing world hunger. But if you have made the world better for some people and you can give examples of that, that's what we're looking for. That's the point of the scholarship, is to try and help the world to become better through training up really incredible students. And the other thing I would say is that if you are someone who is thinking about applying for things like Chevening or Commonwealth, lots of people don't get it on the first go. And there is no shame in that. I know some of our current students applied 5 or 6 times, and they're there now and they're having the best time and they loved it. And every time they applied, they got a bit better and a bit more confident and a bit more knowledgeable, and it made a really big difference. So a failure is not a failure. Getting a rejection letter, they call them love letters, I think, the love letters from Chevening, which is basically like, we're sorry to inform you that. Getting one of those doesn't mean that you should give up. It just means that this isn't the year for you, but there may well be your year coming up soon. But if you don't apply, then it definitely won't be your year. So I think those are some of the tips that we will share. Wanted to talk a little bit about accommodation provision as well. So as I've mentioned, we've got quite a lot of rooms on campus. We now actually have over 5,000 rooms. The majority of these have private bathrooms, so you'd be looking at getting your own ensuite. All of them you will be sharing a kitchen in some way. Now, in terms of pricing, you would typically be ranging between about 124 to 215 pounds per week. The more expensive ones normally are where you're sharing a bathroom with a smaller number of students. And then the cheaper ones, you'd be sharing a bathroom with quite a lot of students. Remy, how many people have you got in your flat, and what's the dynamic like? Do you hang out much, or like what's it like?
Okay, yeah, so we are six in my flat and it's en suite, but we come out often, we meet in the kitchen, we come across each other in the hallways. But there are days, so what we have this tradition every on any person's birthday, we get a cake, we hang out, we sing, and then, just have a little bit of fun in the kitchen. But besides that, usually when anybody goes to the kitchen, and let's say I find someone cooking, we have a chat. Sometimes we call each other, oh, I'm coming out today. Who's coming out soon? And then we have a chat. There's this familial atmosphere. I can speak for my own flat. There's this familial atmosphere about this accommodation, and I think it's cool. I've barely had any issues. I've barely had any issues so far. So yeah, that's the setup here.
That sounds really lovely. That's really nice. Thank you. It's also worth mentioning as well. So if you've got particular needs in terms of if there is a medical need or a religious need, why you have a specific need for a type of accommodation, if you need an ensuite or you need single gender accommodation, just tell the housing team, let them know. If they don't know, they can't help you. So all you need to do is just drop them an email and say, explain your situation, explain what your needs are, and they'll do whatever they can to try and allocate something that works for you. If you don't want to be on campus, there are options off campus, but normally they would be in the private sector. So for our international master's students, I really recommend staying on campus. It takes the pressure out of it. It takes the stress out of it. If you're having to deal with the private sector, sometimes you might get lucky. You might have a great situation, but I know students this year who've rented privately and have had to move because they've had difficult living situations or difficult landlords. Or if you're living in university accommodation, you've got that kind of support. We can support you if there are any problems. Whereas if you go somewhere else, it's a little bit more difficult and we might not be able to help you as much. So it's worth considering that. And there is an accommodation guarantee. So for our master's students, if you apply for the accommodation by the 1st of August, you state your preferences, you pay your deposits, you make us your unconditional offer, then we can guarantee you accommodation. And the way it works normally, just so you know, is that what we do, you will have to choose, you're kind of ranking the kinds of accommodation we have. So you might say, I really want Stanmer or I really want East Slope, and you say which ones you really want to stay in. And then we will try to allocate it, or the accommodation team try to allocate it based on your preferences. Now, they can't always do that. They can't always give you a number one choice, but the earlier you submit that form, the more likely you are to get your number one choice. So just a bit more information in case anyone's got questions about deadlines and things. Okay, so the application deadline for postgraduate admissions is the 1st of August. Now, I would recommend, as Remy was saying about scholarships, don't apply then if you want to start that year. It's going to be really difficult. It puts a lot of pressure on you to get your visa in time. You might have to pay for a priority visa if you're able to. I would recommend applying much, much earlier. Even in the next few months, I think it's worth thinking about applying, because then it takes the pressure off. It means you can wait for your offer. Hopefully you get an offer, and then we'll be able to apologies, someone's knocking at the door again. And then we'll be able to kind of go through the processes for you. So that makes life a lot easier. We do have acceptance deadlines, so you'll need to make sure that you actually accept the offer in time, and the deadline will be on your offer letter. So make sure that you send us your acceptance in time if you do plan on accepting your offer. And then, as I mentioned, the accommodation deadline is the 1st of August as well. There's no deadline for our postgraduate deposit. The deposit is £5,000. There is no deadline for that, but we cannot release your CAS, which is what you need for your visa, until the deposit is paid, and the accommodation isn't going to be guaranteed until the deposit is paid. So the exception for this would be any of our scholarship students. So anyone who's going to be coming to us with a scholarship, you don't need to worry about that, because we would be able to accept you once we've got proof that you've got your scholarship. But anyone who is self-funding, you need to pay your deposits, and then we can issue your CAS. So definitely don't do that last minute, because sometimes it can take a few days for the money to reach us. Then we have to issue your CAS, which can take a few days. Then you have to apply for your visa. So I guess the main messaging here is doing whatever you can to try and be a bit ahead of the game. Don't do things at the last minute, because it will make things really, really stressful for you. So that is everything I wanted to talk about. And you've got my contact details there. I'm available on email or on WhatsApp. Remy, was there anything that you wanted to share about Sussex? Do you want to share a little bit about how you found the university so far, what the experience is like, what the community is like?
Yes, thank you, Alice. So when I resumed, one thing that I thought of was, okay, I'm a night reader. So I was thinking, how do I manage this? What if I don't want to read in my room for whatever reason? What if maybe I'm not motivated and I need to step out to read? So I was excited the day that I found out that the library was open 24/7. I was excited. And that really helped me in my essays for last term. I was leaving the library 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Imagine if the library closes at 6 p.m. I wouldn't have been able to read the way that I wanted to. I was able to arrange my timetable in a way that suited me, because there was no limits as to time. So to start with, I am impressed with the library system, right? It helps more than just being open. There's hardly any paper or document that I need that I don't find in the library, right? That's not something I'm generally used to, if I'm being honest. So there's no pressure of, oh, I have to read this essential reading for my course. You can find it on your Canvas system. You can find it in the library. So you all have these resources available, and it makes reading easier. If you have all of this and you don't read, you know that it's as a result of your discipline, not because these resources are not available. So I love that about, being at Sussex. Another thing, if you're a very social person, you're extroverted, I don't think you need to worry about the social life. If anything, the only worry you would have is picking what event to attend, right? Because every week you sort of receive an email telling you, oh, this is what is going on campus. There's this event, whether to socialize, to network, whether to meet people from the same culture. And in fact, I think we have about maybe 180 or over 180 student-led societies on campus. So if you're interested in science, you're interested in arts, music, anything at all. So it's like there is always a space for you. There is always an avenue for you to belong. You don't feel lost. This is my first time in the UK. And if I'm being honest, I haven't had that moment where I feel, oh, it feels different, honestly, because you always find your own kind. And then more than finding your kind here, even finding people from other cultures, it's just interesting, honestly. So whether you're introverted, you're extroverted, you find your style. It works for you either ways. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that I have here in my note that I haven't mentioned. I've talked about Stanmore Park. I had to put it down because I am so attached to the park. Oh yes, you mentioned, Alice, you mentioned the MX Stadium. I have two friends who are crazy about football. They're excited that, they're just a few minutes walk away from the stadium. So if you're a football fan, know that there is a bonus for you in that regard. You can easily access the stadium and you watch football to pass away time. Off the cuff, I think those are the only things that come to my mind now. If there's any other thing, maybe if there's any chance to put it in the chat box, I'll do that.
Remy, I was going to ask, I know I've seen you at some of my scholars events that I run, but what else do you do when you're not working? You said that the part of the challenge is trying to fit, like, kind of fit everything in. So what else are you trying to cram into into your days?
Okay. So if I'm not doing my studies or I'm not doing anything related to this ambassador, international student ambassador role, I have other private projects that I'm handling, right? Maybe I'm speaking to somebody, maybe I'm being told to join maybe a webinar or to speak to a group of undergraduates. So there's always something taking up my time. There are also some personal projects that I'm trying to sort out while I'm here. So if it's not school work, it's personal work. If it's not personal work, it's one of the part-time roles as a student ambassador. And before you know it, you have the whole 24 hours, ticked off, and then the next day, and then the next day, and the routine continues. But I promise you, I try to make time for some fun. I promise you that.
Good, very glad to hear it. Thanks, Remy. It's really interesting to hear your thoughts.
Mm.
I'll ask you one more question and then I'll just double check and see if people have asked any questions. But was there anything that you found weird about the Brits when you came to the UK or about Britain generally? Anything you weren't expecting?
Let's see. Um, okay. I think that maybe the food. So where I'm from, Nigeria, so when you have an event and they tell you that you should expect maybe lunch or something, you're expecting maybe a full-fledged meal, right? So I remember one of the first events that I attended, I think it was just tea and some snacks. And I hadn't eaten before I left the house that day. So it was sort of like a culture shock to me because I thought that it was going to be a meal that maybe when I have it that morning, it would take me the entire day. But it was just tea and maybe some snacks and bread. And that sort of told me, okay. So whenever I go out like that, I eat before I leave my house, right? If I'm not sure that there's going to be a proper meal. I think that's the only, that was one of the first things that shocked me a little, like, okay. So when they say you're going to have lunch, it's not necessarily a full meal, except it's specifically stated. And, I've gotten used to it. So yeah, I've gotten
That's a
used to
really
it.
good one, actually. I like that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, the other thing I think that I hear quite a lot from international students is remember to bring layers because the weather can go from like gloriously sunny to oh, it's raining, oh, there's hail, oh, there's snow, oh, it's sunny again, and it can all happen within a day. So just bring and you'll bring a waterproof coat, and then you can kind of take your coat off when it warms up, and then you can put it back on. And the other thing I hear a lot as well is spices. So you can get them in Brighton, but I think when you first arrive, I mean, I've been to Nigeria, I've been to various African countries. I really like I really like the food in the various countries that I have been to. And then when I go back to the UK, I can see why students might find it perhaps a little bland. So when you're coming over, if you've got particular things that you would normally eat at home that you really, really want, do bring them with you. You'll probably be able to get them in Brighton as well. But what you don't want to do is arrive and then only be able